All new information enters your brain through one of your five senses. You either see it, hear it, touch it, smell it, or taste it. There's simply no other way for information to get into your mind. In practice, you don't really use your sense of taste or smell very much in life unless you are a cook, a chemist, or a perfume salesperson. So to understand the process of learning, we'll be safe in saying that we have three main ways to take in information. You see it, you hear it, and/or you physically experience it. The new information comes through your eyes, through your ears, or through your sense of touch or feeling. The very best, of course, is for you to take in new ideas using all three sensory modalities, and we'll talk about that a little later. The most significant point here is that each person differs greatly in how they best take in new information. Surveys indicate that 35% of the population are mainly visual learners. They are most stimulated to learn by pictures and written words. 25% of people are mainly auditory learners. They prefer to take in new information by conversation and lectures. The other 40% of people are mainly physical learners. They prefer some kind of hands-on experience or active physical involvement in the learning process in order to take in the information. Of course, no one is only one of the three, visual, auditory, or physical. Each person has a unique combination that they like to use in any learning experience. And you benefit most from learning experiences where all your senses are involved. The unfortunate thing that has happened to us in growing up is that teachers naturally have an unconscious tendency to teach us in the way they prefer to learn themselves. But all too often, the way teachers instinctively teach is not the way that the majority of their pupils like to learn. A teacher whose style was to have the class sit still, face the front, and listen to him or her while he or she talked would appeal only to the auditory type of learner. This type of learner prefers to take in information by listening. But the same teacher would have missed the other 75% of the population who are more physical or visual learners. This mismatch between teaching styles and learning styles is the main problem leading to academic underachievement, frustration, and failure. If the way you are taught does not match the way you like to learn, you'll soon lose confidence in the educational process. You'll begin to doubt your intelligence and ability. You'll become discouraged. This is now happening to the majority of students in our schools. When pupils begin to conclude that they are poor learners, they lose confidence, and then their emotional brains start to feel stress. That stress further reduces the information reaching their thinking brains, and the vicious circle has started. This is not just a theory, by the way. Statistics show that 4 out of 5 children at age 6 are confident in their ability to learn. As young children, they've been exploring the world with all their senses, usually in a very trusting and supportive environment. Then they went to school and the rules of learning changed. They were asked to sit still. They were discouraged from exploring and were lectured to more often. Fewer of their senses were involved in the learning processes, and fewer of their multiple intelligences were engaged. The learning experience became less fun, and there was less of a personal relationship with the teacher. By the age of 16, only one teenager in 5 is still confident of their ability to learn. Most of the others have tuned out and turned off. They look forward to those golden days when they'll be out of school and no longer subjected to these awful, boring learning experiences. Sometimes a student will do well in one subject in one class and then do poorly in another. Almost invariably, this is caused by a mismatch between teaching styles and learning styles. It has very little to do with the child. There are countless examples of children who have changed teachers or changed schools, and their academic accomplishments have zoomed into the straight A category. And what we know now is that this is probably possible for everyone. As an adult, you can't normally influence how information is given to you, but you can choose how you will adapt that information so that you take it in a way that is suitable to your particular learning preferences. In the workbook, there's a test that you can take to determine your particular sensory preference, whether you are visual, auditory, or physical. You probably have a good idea of what kind of a learner you are already, but the test will make it more clear and distinct for you. An important principle in learning is to build on your strengths. As the saying goes, the very best direction to ride a horse is in the direction that it is already heading. The very best direction to develop your talents and abilities is in the direction in which they are already going. Your job is not to try to be different from who you are, but to be the very best person you can possibly be, given your unique set of talents, abilities, and preferences. If you're a visual learner, you would like to see things, to read things, to explore graphs and diagrams, and to write out notes, words, and pictures of the information that you're exploring. When you hear an interesting concept or idea, you immediately want to see it in writing in some form. If you're an auditory learner, you very much enjoy asking questions and listening to people. You will prefer to learn from audio cassettes and lectures. You will have an extremely well-developed ability to take in and remember information that you have heard. If you're a physical learner, you need to get your hands on something to try it out. You want to practice a new skill or ability as soon as you learn about it. You don't learn well from instruction, but you would rather be walked through it physically so that you can do every step of the procedure yourself. The key to learning is to find out what works best for you, and then to be sure that the new information that you're getting is tailored in such a way that it suits your learning preference. However, the chief goal of this session, and one of the main goals of this entire program, is for you to become a multi-sensory learner. It is for you to bombard your mind from all directions with the same information presented in a variety of ways so that you absorb it faster and apply it sooner than you would if you were restricted to learning through only one of the visual, auditory, or physical modalities. In multi-sensory learning, if you read and then visualize the material, you have seen it. If you make up questions and answer them aloud, you have heard it. If you write out the answers to your questions and circle the major points, you will have done it physically. Your job is to take a book, a lecture, or a training demonstration of any kind and do something extra that helps you to learn it in the way that suits you best. Multisensory learners deliberately engage all their senses as they learn. And here's an interesting point. You have a separate memory for what you see, what you hear, and what you do. If you activate all three memories simultaneously with a new piece of information, your likelihood of remembering and applying that information goes up by several hundred percentage points. Abraham Maslow, the psychologist, once watched his grandson playing with a hammer that he had received for Christmas. He made the observation that when all you have is a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. The subject of this session is getting the facts, or taking in new information. Most people only learn with one or two techniques, and their ability to take in new information is dramatically limited. Their whole world looks like a nail. But when you learn and apply a variety of techniques, it'll open your whole brain so that information will flood into your mind in a variety of different ways. Every technique and method we teach in this program is designed to give you yet another way to activate a different part of your brain and your intelligences so that you accelerate the speed at which you learn. And of course, the faster you learn, the faster you will learn in the future. The starting point of getting the facts in a way that is most conducive to rapid learning is for you to get the big picture first. Ask for or create a general outline of the material before you begin learning it piece by piece. One of the most important questions you can ask when approaching any new learning experience is this: what specifically will I be able to do differently as a result of what I learn in this course? The more clearly defined your learning objectives for any piece of material, the more likely it is that you will learn on purpose. By starting with the goal in mind, by being clear about where you are and where you want to end up at the end of the learning experience, you will be far more alert and aware of the ideas and information in the material that can help you to achieve that goal. When I'm doing training sessions, I sometimes begin by asking the audience, "Why are you here?" This question is almost always followed by a deafening silence. Everyone just sits there in wonderment. No one has ever asked them this question before. They look at me as though I'm supposed to know why they are there and what they're supposed to learn. So I wait quietly for a few seconds, even a minute or so, until someone from the audience tentatively answers the question. I then write the answer down and ask, what is it that you want and need to learn from this course in order to do your jobs better? And then I wait again. Soon the answers begin to come from the audience, faster and faster. In no time at all, I will have written down 10, 20, or 30 answers. I will then review the answers with the audience and ask them to raise their hands if they consider a particular objective to be more important than another. This entire exercise takes about 5 minutes, but at the end of it, the entire audience is fully engaged in the seminar that's about to begin. In a smaller and more limited way, you should do this prior to reading any book or article, listening to any audio tape, or taking any course of instruction. The more reasons you have for wanting to learn a subject, the more focused and directed you will be throughout the learning experience, and of course, the more and faster you will learn and retain. Visualization is a very powerful learning tool. If you can create a visual image of how you will be when you are fluent with this new information, this visual image will increase your learning ability and your memory. The more often you imagine yourself exactly as you would be as a master of this particular subject, the more motivated you will be to learn it. At the very least, ask the instructor, what do you want me to know or to be able to do after this session? What are his or her objectives for you? What does he or she feel that you should learn as a result of what he or she is about to teach? Another way to get the big picture in any learning experience is for you to browse through the material from front to back, reading all the major headings and subheadings. Look at the way the material is laid out, the graphs or diagrams that have been chosen to illustrate the material, and the chapter titles and subtitles. Read the biography of the writer or the instructor and the background or objectives for the course, book, or program. This will often trigger your interest and activate your mind so that the subject is much more alive for you. It will also begin engaging your 3 sensory preferences and make it easier for you to learn. Once you get the big picture, take a few moments to write out the key points about what you already know of the subject. Put these points under 2 categories. The first is sentence completion. Take the sentence, "What I already know about this subject is," and then complete the sentence with as many points as possible. Then write the heading, "These are the areas I need to find out more about," and write down as many ways to complete that sentence as possible. This is a good place for you to use a learning map, which I'll explain in a few minutes. The next stage in multisensory learning is to break the learning task down into small steps. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "A journey of 1,000 leagues begins with a single step." This is true for learning as well. Complete fluency in a language or mastery of a subject begins with your learning the first new word or fact. However huge a learning task may initially appear, you can defeat it with a simple step-by-step plan. Learning proceeds along a continuum, like taking a journey from point A to point B. You learn a subject gradually, bit by bit. There's no particular point between when you don't know the subject and when you do, when you are uneducated in a subject and when you are fully educated in a subject. Everything is a matter of small degrees. When I was traveling in foreign countries, I developed a simple system for learning the basic languages. I started by learning the pronunciations of the various sounds and vowels and syllables, and then followed that by the basic salutations and greetings, the numbers, the days of the week, and the basic questions. I found that I could learn all of these in 4 to 5 hours of intense study with a language book. From that point on, I would go out into the street and use the little bit of language that I had. With each additional study session, I would build on my existing language base. In no time at all, I was getting along fairly well and in various languages. However, from the minute that I learned and practiced the first few words, I was speaking the language. I had embarked on the journey. I was putting one foot in front of the other on the road toward fluency. And this is the same for you with any subject. The important thing to remember is that when you are learning something complex and challenging, like learning a computer, you don't automatically have to start at the very beginning. You can roam around the subject and get started on something that engages your interest. The most important thing is to take a bit of the information and just begin. Einstein was a poor student. He could not speak until he was 4, and he couldn't read until he was 7. His teachers felt that he had learning disabilities and that he could never be properly educated. But something sparked his interest in physics at a young age. It was a favorite toy, a magnet. He became very interested in what forces caused the magnet to attract metal. So he started to think and wonder, and he began to brush up on his mathematics. He learned little by little. Geniuses are more made than born. Einstein's brain now sits in a glass jar in Kansas City. Small parts of it have been studied by brain researchers over the years. It is no bigger than average, but researchers say that it has one difference from most brains. It shows evidence of very rich connections between the brain cells. In fact, every time you experience something new, or think in a new way, you make more connections between your brain cells, between your neurons and dendrites. The more connections you make, the more brain capacity you build at virtually any age. In a very real sense, every small step in learning in any subject makes you more intelligent. You develop your own brain capacity by continuing to use it by learning facts one by one. An excellent way for you to keep a high level of interest and to intensify your concentration on any subject is to ask lots of questions. Remember, all knowledge is merely answers to questions. The more questions you have, the more curious you become, the more intelligent you are. In fact, one of the hallmarks of the intelligent person is that they are continually asking all kinds of questions about particular subjects. I worked with a very wealthy man some years ago who built a great fortune in a variety of businesses and industries. I spent many hours watching his interactions with his various business associates. He was low-keyed, but he had an insatiable curiosity. He never stopped asking questions about a particular business or venture. By the time he actually made a commitment to going ahead with a business idea, he was more thoroughly knowledgeable about that business than almost anyone else in the industry. So write down as many questions as you can think about a subject on a separate piece of paper. As you read the material or listen to the instructor, jot down additional questions. The more questions you have, the more alert and aware you will be, and the more of your brain will be activated in the learning process. Learning new material while you are looking for the answers to questions keeps you learning on purpose and accelerates your learning speed. It helps you to concentrate and focus better on new information. One of the greatest breakthroughs in rapid learning in this century has been the discovery and development of the concept called mind mapping, or what we refer to as learning maps. This breakthrough was triggered by the realization that we see and experience our worlds holistically, taking in a variety of sights, sounds, emotions, smells, and other sensory experiences simultaneously. And this is the same way that our brain functions, with one sensory experience triggering an entire series of brain cells responsible for the functions relating to that particular experience. In studying a subject, you use a learning map by starting with the theme or subject in a circle in the center of the page, and then drawing sub-branches that stand for the sub-themes of what you are learning. You can make your learning map more memorable by using different colored pens or pencils for various branches or words or themes. Some people recommend that you use a highlighter and that you use different colors to surround each branch with even different colors to surround each sub-branch. The use of pictures and symbols like stick figures, question marks, stars, little houses, cars, and so on are also useful for making your learning map more vivid and memorable and activating more centers of your brain. With a little practice, you can first of all summarize each chapter of a book in a learning map. Later, you'll be able to summarize an entire book in a learning map. Learning maps have many advantages. Because they are laid out on a single page of paper, with branches flowing out in all directions from the central theme, they present ideas in a visual form. The information is presented clearly and concisely, like a snapshot, and only the core ideas or key words are used on the various branches. Because a learning map is visual, it's easier to picture later in your mind, and it therefore helps to make learning more memorable and easier. Many learners find that they can take in information all at once when it's presented in a learning map. Learning maps are fast to produce, easy to read, and easy to remember. The essential rule when making a learning map is to only use keywords whenever possible. Keywords are the essential words that when you read them remind you of the whole idea. These are the words that get to the heart of the meaning. The keywords that you use on a learning map are usually nouns, because since nouns are names of things, they're easy to remember. There are examples of learning maps in your workbook that you should review and work with. It's a new technique for you to learn, and it requires some practice. But once you get the hang of it, you will be astonished at how much it helps you to learn more effectively. You can use learning maps for a variety of different mental representation activities. One exercise I use in my classes is to have people do a learning map for their lives. They draw a circle in the middle of the paper and write in their names. Then they make a series of branches that represent the major parts of their lives, their families, their work, their finances, their business activities, their community activities, their sports, their education, and so on. Off of each of these main lines, they create smaller branches that represent sub-themes. For example, on the family branch, there would be smaller branches for each member of the family, plus the home, car, vacations, problems, time spent, plans for the future, financial situation, and so on. Each member of the family as a sub-branch could have sub-branches as well. You can actually create a one-page visual description of your entire life and get a much better idea of how the various parts of your life relate to each other by putting them onto a learning map. You can use a learning map to sketch out a personal development plan, a personal financial plan, a sales strategy plan, a business organization plan, an itinerary for a trip or vacation, and even a plan for your life as you would like to create it some years from now. The entire process of creating and adding to learning maps is both exciting and enjoyable, and it dramatically increases the effective function of your brain and your intelligences. There are a series of additional techniques that you can use to increase the speed at which you get the facts and take in new ideas. First, you can tick off a sentence or paragraph as you read it and understand it. At the end of a page, you can put a tick mark in the upper corner to indicate to your brain that you have fully grasped the content on that page. Take the time to read and reread a difficult passage if you don't get it the first time. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by a whole chapter of a textbook or instruction manual, you should concentrate on understanding one small chunk at a time. In time, you'll understand more and more, faster and faster. Even people who've learned the most complex subjects or languages start with the simple basics and work up one step at a time. Second, use a highlighter pen when you are reading and studying. This is why it is so important for you to buy your own books rather than borrowing them. You want to be able to mark them up thoroughly. If you've properly underlined and highlighted, when you look back on the material in a day, a month, or even a year later, you'll be able to pick out all the important bits of new information in a few minutes. The key is to only underline or highlight the new information or new ways of looking at old information rather than highlighting an entire paragraph or every word in a line. Each time you go over a piece of material, use a different highlighter pen so that eventually the material looks like a splash of color. The use of different colors, markings, underlinings, and highlightings, accompanied by stars, question marks, arrows, and exclamation points in the margins, dramatically increases the quantity of what you learn and remember. Third, read it dramatically. This stimulates your auditory and kinesthetic senses. You remember what's dramatic. Sounds can be dramatic if you read the material as though you are acting on a major stage in front of 1,000 people and you're trying to impress them with the power of the words. You can even use a foreign accent to make the material more memorable. Or you can try whispering it to yourself. You often whisper things that are important. In every case, you send a signal to your subconscious mind that this is important material that you want to both remember and recall later. Reading this dramatically is a great tool for auditory learners, and it increases your ability to use your auditory learning modality, even if you are a visual or physical learner. Fourth, summarize the material out loud. You tend to remember twice as much of what you say aloud rather than what you merely read to yourself. So stop regularly and summarize out loud what you have read in your own words. Forcing yourself to paraphrase the material increases the speed at which you grasp the material and make it your own. The fifth way to engage in multisensory learning is to sit quietly and visualize the material that you have just seen, read, or heard. Go over it in your mind's eye and make a mental movie of it, like an instant replay in a sports program. It helps to store the information in your visual memory. A powerful learning tool is for you to run over something important that you learned during the day just before you fall asleep. This transfers the material to your long-term memory and allows your subconscious mind to file it away during the night. The sixth way for you to engage your multisensory learning modalities is to walk around while you read or listen. We all have preferences for physical learning to some degree, and you can often learn more by moving around while you're taking in the information. Many of my students listen to my audio cassettes when they are walking, running, or exercising, and they learn the material extremely well because they have their physical senses fully activated while they're taking in the information through earphones. In any case, regular breaks are extremely helpful for accelerated learning. Get up and move every 25 to 30 minutes. While you're sitting, doodle, underline in color, jot down notes, and make learning maps. By forcing yourself to make learning maps to illustrate what the instructor is saying or what you're reading, you'll be a far more active learner than if you merely sat and took it in passively. The seventh way to utilize more of your sensory modalities is to write key ideas on Post-it notes or postcards. These Post-it notes come in various sizes, and you can write out the key ideas and then lay them out on a larger piece of paper or card in front of you. You can then move the various notes around so that they take different positions in relation to each other. It's absolutely amazing how much more rapidly you will learn ideas when you shift Post-it notes around so that they are in a sequence that makes better sense to you. This activity allows you to sort out the information physically and to see it visually. As you read the Post-it notes, you say the words to yourself at the same time. All your sensory modalities are engaged with this exercise. Index cards work equally well. They are tremendous helps in learning key concepts or in memorizing words of a foreign language. An eighth way is note-making rather than note-taking. When you make notes, you write down the things that you are thinking, and you write them in your own words. When you take notes, you simply duplicate what the book is saying or what the instructor is teaching. The more you think in terms of paraphrasing what you are learning in your own words, the more concentration is required of you. And the more you concentrate, the more of your brain cells you activate, and the smarter you become. The smarter you become, the more and better you learn, and the faster and easier you memorize. The ninth way to accelerate learning is just to stop and go for a walk. Let the information soak into your mind. Very often your thinking processes are like pouring water onto the hard ground. If you pour too much water, the water will simply pool. But if you wait for a little while, the water will soak in, and you can pour more water on it. Taking in new information is very much the same. You need a period of absorption after you've learned a series of new ideas. Getting yourself and your mind busy elsewhere for a while after a learning session allows the new information to soak into your mind and become more available to you later. It's a very good idea to review your notes from a learning session just a few minutes before you go to sleep. Again, this allows your subconscious mind to absorb and to file the information away during the night. The 10th key to multisensory learning is as important as anything else you will ever discover. It is the importance of the buddy system of learning. This is where you get a learning partner for a particular subject. You will always learn far more and far faster if you are learning in conjunction with someone else. With a learning partner, you discuss some of the things that we have gone over earlier in this session. You ask and answer for each other questions like, why are we taking this course? What is it that we want to learn? What is it that we already know? What will we be able to do if we really master this material? What are the most important things we need to know given our current situation? If you discuss these subjects in advance, you will have a basis for an ongoing conversation during the learning experience. After each session, you can test each other by asking questions like, what was the most important thing you just learned? Why do you feel that that was more important than something else? What was the least important thing that you just learned? How could this learning experience be improved? And what do we want to learn next time? Socrates once said that we only learn a subject by dialoguing about it. The more you can discuss, debate, argue, and defend your ideas and your position on a subject with someone else, the faster and deeper you learn the material, and the more permanently you retain it for use in the future. Most people are in the situation of being in a room where they open only one window to let in air or light, and sometimes they don't even open that window very much. By practicing these various techniques for getting facts and taking in new ideas, you put yourself in the position of going around and opening up all the windows into a room, allowing the room to be flooded with the sunshine and air of new ideas and concepts. You dramatically increase the likelihood that you will learn and retain what you are taking in. You double and triple your learning speed by deliberately choosing to structure your learning experience in such a way that you get the very most out of it. You are already beginning to realize that you are far smarter than perhaps you ever appreciated before. In fact, you are a potential genius. All you need to do to function at exceptional levels is to unlock more of your innate ability. No test or measure of your intelligence or academic accomplishments in the past has been an accurate assessment of what you are capable of doing in the future. Your past is not your potential. Your future can be unlimited, especially in the area of learning new knowledge and skills, and depending, of course, upon your level of belief and determination. And the wonderful thing is that the more of your brain you use, the more of your brain becomes available to you. As you become smarter in any one subject, you become smarter in other subjects as well. When you learn one language, you'll find it even easier to learn a second and a third language. As you develop a skill in any area, you will find it easier and easier to develop ever more complex details and skills in that particular area. As you stimulate and activate more of your mental neurons and dendrites, you develop a richer and more complex brain, and you become more and more intelligent as time passes. And the more you use these techniques, especially the exciting technique of learning maps, the more, faster, and better you will learn and advance in everything you do.